When discovering different Java collections, it is recommended to start with definition of array in Java. In this video, I'm going to describe what is an array, how to declare and initiate an array, and how to use the utility methods to work with the arrays efficiently. Then I will demonstrate creating and using the arrays, including multidimensional array as well. Array is an object that contains a fixed number of elements of the same type. When you create an array, you need to indicate its size. If you later change your mind, you cannot resize an existing array. Only way to achieve increase in the size of an array is to create a new one. Arrays can be made of different data type values, including primitives and objects. For example, you can create an array of primitive integers, strings, or any other object types. But each element in the array has to be of the same type. You cannot have an element with an integer value inside the array which is made of the string values. You cannot mix them. Arrays are indexed and first element index starts from 0. The index for the last element will be array length minus 1. If you try to access an element with a non-existing index, the array index out of bounds exception will occur. To declare an array, the following syntax is used. Let's say you need to declare an array of primitive integers and name it simply array. You type int with square brackets, space, and name of the array object variable, in this case, array. There is another way of declaring an array where you type int, space, the name of the array followed with square brackets. Both of these declarations will work, but most Java programmers prefer the first way because it visually separates the type int with square brackets from the variable name. After declaring the array, in order to use it, we need to initialize it. One way to initialize the array is the following syntax, where we have an equality sign and the values of the array separated with commas and closed with curly braces. In this type of declaration, we do not explicitly set the size of an array, but it still has a fixed size. In another way, we use the new keyword followed by int, square brackets, and the size of the array inside them. We can also declare an anonymous array with the following syntax. This can be useful in certain situations where we need to create and pass the array to some other method as an argument on the fly. It is completely okay to have an array of size 0, and please take in mind that this does not mean that the array is null. Now let's see array demo in action. In order to create an array, first we are going to type int square brackets, name of the array, in this case numbers, equals new int square brackets, followed by curly braces where we are going to write actual array elements, in this case integer values 1, 3, let's say 5, 7, and 9, followed by semicolon at the end. On the next line, let's try to print the values of the array. So if we are going to do numbers.sout, and if we are going to hit the tab button on your keyboard, what happens is that numbers array gets wrapped by systemoutPrintln method, and let's see if it actually prints the values of the array. If we run the program, either by Ctrl+Shift F10 or just manually by pressing run, we can see the output that instead of writing actual array elements to the console, we are just getting some memory address for the object of the array itself. So how can we solve this problem? How to actually print the values of the array? One of the way is to type for, hit the tab button. So we are going to do for statement, for loop, and we are going to declare int integer colon numbers, and what it says is to iterate through numbers array, and for each integer do some logic, and the logic goes inside curly braces. So let's create these curly braces, and let's say integer, and still wrap each integer in SOUT systemoutPrintln method. So now if we run our program, let's see if it actually loops through array and if it actually prints the values. we can see that it works. So we are getting these values printed on the new line. Another similar way and another much more shorter way is using arrays class, which is utility class, and it is usually used with array operations. So if we type arrays dot toString method and pass numbers as an argument, so we are passing our array to this method as an argument, it will actually return string representation of these number values. And after returning, we are going to actually display it to the console. So we are going to use system.out.println method. And now I will remove this semicolon here and I will type dot SOUT and hit the tab. So what can we see is that system.out.println now wraps all these statements, so this method call and numbers passed as an argument. If we run this now, let's see the output. And as we can see, we are getting the representation of the array elements as a string. This way of printing array elements to the console just takes a single line of code. Now let's see how to create an array with more than one dimension. So in order to create, let's say, two-dimensional array, I'm going to type int and two pairs of square brackets. It will be some kind of a table which will have two rows and two columns. So after equality sign, we are going to do new, still int with two pairs of square brackets, and first pair will have the number of rows, let's say 2 rows, and for simplicity, let's say 2 columns as well. So we are going to print the table. Well, first of all, we are going to create the table with 2 rows and 2 columns. And after we are populating it with the values, we are going to print it. So how to add the values? It will be table 0, 0. So 0 row will be first row and 0 column will be first column. Value for this will be, for example, 0. And if we are going to push Ctrl plus D on our keyboard, it will actually duplicate this statement to multiple lines. So we are going to do 1, 2, 3. And let's say the numbers will be 0, 1, 2, 3. And let's adjust the positions of rows and columns. So we already got first row, first column. Then it will be first row, second column. So it will be 0, 1. And let's move to second row, which will have the index of 1. And the second row, first column will be 1, 0. And second row, second column will be 1 and 1. So we already got the values and 2 dimensions. Now let's see how to actually print. So we are going to use 4 loops, and one loop will be nested into another. So outer loop will be for iterating through the rows. It will be int I equals 0, I is less than table length, I plus. And inside curly braces we got nested loop. And why do we need nested loop? Because for each row we are going to iterate through the column values in order to actually print the elements. So nested loop will iterate through the columns for each row. And let's denote the column indices with j. So it will start with int j equals 0, j is less than table 0 length, which will be the length of each row. And we are going to type j++. And inside nested loop, we are going to actually print the results. So it will be SOT, system out, print, not the line, but just print, because we are going to print the elements of the same row on the same line. And we are going to indicate table ij, positions, the values on this position. For example, ij, when it will be 0, 0, it will actually print the value of first row and first column, which will be 0. And in order to separate these values to be more visible, I will just add plus and empty string at the end. And after iterating through each row, we are going to do this new line. So it will be system out print line, not just print, but print line, because after finishing printing the first row, it will move to the next row. And now let's see if our code actually works and if it gives us the desired output. And after running this code, we can see that we are going to get this two-dimensional table, simple representation of it, and we got 0 and 1 on the first row as expected, and 2 and 3 on the second row. So this is just a simple example of how we can use the arrays with more than one dimension in our Java code. Now that we have a general understanding of arrays in Java and how they work, in the follow-up video we can discuss an implementation of list data structure which is based on array, and it's called array list.